Before long, the Shinsengumi had left for the front, leaving only a handful of soldiers in the silent compound. So, what should I be doing when they're out? That's a question. Oh, right. Kondo had asked me to keep an eye on Okita and Hesuke. I think Okita was in the inner courtyard. To be honest, I was a little concerned for him. He was still recovering, and being out in the cold air wasn't doing him any favors in that regard. Still, that left Heisuke and Sanan-san. Maybe they're still in the common room. Heisuke seemed particularly frustrated at being forced to stay behind, and Sanan-san had been even colder and more distant lately. I was worried for Okita, of course, but I felt there was something deeper affecting the other two. Where should I go? Well, we'll go into the common room. I heard Heisuke and someone else talking as I walked down the hall. They were in the common room then.
俺も行きたかったな。別名あるまで豚書で待機とか退屈すぎだって。
深い傷ではありませんが、大事を取るのは当然でしょう。
It sounded as if Sanan-san was actually trying to cheer Heisuke up. How long had it been since I'd heard Sanan-san say something nice to someone? He was a very kind man once upon a time. I miss that Sanan-san.
そりゃ確かに怪我は怪我だし、豚書の留守も大事なのは分かってるけど。
君は傷さえ癒えれば、すぐに新選組の表舞台へ戻れますよ。それに比べて私には日陰者の道しか残されていないのですから。
それはそのなんていうか。
An awkward silence fell over the room. It would have been rude for me to speak up, having left the inn unharmed on that fateful night. But if I pretended to enter for another matter, it would make it clear that I was eavesdropping. I had no choice then. I had to return to my room. As I turned to do so, Sanan-san's voice stopped me cold.
しかし、あの薬を使えば、私も再び剣を取ることができるかもしれません。
Treatment? What did he mean by that? Medicine? But he was already taking the Ishida powder. Unless he was talking about something else.
何考えてんだよ、三男さん。本気で羅刹になるとか言ってんの。
Heisuke shouted at Sanan-san. What was this conversation about? Something about this conversation seemed familiar. I heard them mention something about it around when I first arrived. We were eating dinner together when we'd received the news of Sanan-san's injury.
薬でも何でも使ってもらうしかないですね。三男さんも納得してくれるんじゃないかな。
掃除。めったなこと言うもんじゃねえ。幹部が羅刹になってどうするんだよ。
They'd mentioned the serum then too. Are they talking about that?
あれは結局失敗になったんだろ。だから掃除とはじめくんが殺すことになったし。
Okita and Saito had to kill them? That night was an experience I would never forget. But what did it have to do with his treatment?
確かにあの薬は未完成ですが、行動さんさえ見つかれば改良の余地はあります。
Father? What did Father have to do with their treatment? This was a great deal of information to take in. My mind was a hurricane of thoughts, suspicions, and fears trickling through the corners of my mind. Even as I struggled to make sense of what I just heard, I knew that I had stumbled onto something dangerous, something I shouldn't know. Suddenly, I wanted very much to be gone. Why did I stay and listen? I was such a fool.
申し訳ありませんが、今の話は他言無用でお願いしますね。
His cold, quiet voice filled the empty hall. Maybe the words that came out of Sanan-san's mouth were directed strictly to Heisuke. Heisuke responded with a furrowed brow.
いや、気持ちはわかるけどさ。俺は絶対に反対だから。
I helplessly felt like those words were directed towards me. I scurried from the area as I grasped my fast-beating heart. If what Sanan-san had suggested really did happen, as suddenly as I could, I moved down the hall and away from the common room, back to the room I suddenly wished I'd never left. The Choshu extremists' attempted attack on the imperial estate eventually came to be known as the Hamaguri Rebellion. Although the Shinsengumi were called to action, their efforts were stymied, and they found little in the way of glory. Communications with their superiors was poor at best, and they spent much of the battle waiting with the reserves. When the Shinsengumi finally entered the battle, each man found several strange opponents waiting them. Shikage Kazuma, who defeated Okitara Ikeda, claimed to be from the Satsuma domain during his encounter with Hijikata-san. Kyuji Amagiri, the man who shattered Heisuke's head guard at Ikeda, also claimed membership in the Satsuma. They had also met Kyo Shiranui, who had fought alongside men from Choshu. Whoever they were, it was clear that they were not allies of the Shinsengumi. Indeed, it seemed they could easily become some of their greatest enemies. If they were to meet in open battle, the casualties would be severe. By the time the battle was over, the commanders of the Choshu attack had been killed in the fighting, or took their own lives. There were some soldiers, however, who escaped, setting Kyo ablaze as they fled. By some terrible misfortune, winds that day blew from the north and fanned the flames, reducing the southern end of the imperialist state to ash. As a result of the Choshu attack, many imperial nationalists were yawning. Many imperial nationalists were executed. With the Hamaguri rebellion over, the Choshu were branded as traitors for attacking the estate. From then on, they were acknowledged enemies of the court. September 1864. The closeness in time between the battles of the Ikedaen and the Imperial Palace created significant civil unrest within Kyo. The Shinsengumi redoubled their efforts to keep people safe, but the more they worked, the more the Shogun put them to work. Oh, I think I know what we're about to do.
さて、じゃあ行ってくるとすっか。俺がいない間、みんなのことよろしくな。
大使、確か。
まあ正直言うと、伊藤。
Yeah, we've seen this before. I want to watch over everyone while you're gone. Investigate. We're investigating. I'm going to muster the courage to look into this. But where should I investigate? My room is in the Yagi house. There are some rooms that I'm not allowed to enter, but the captains live here as well, and I'd finally learned how to navigate the building. However, was another building that was part of the headquarters for the Shinsengumi, aside from the Yagi house. Some of the leaders, along with other warriors, lived in the Mayakawa house, diagonal from Yagi. And Sanan-san, who's injured, had been holed up in the Nambu residence, located behind Yagi. Since it's a residence, one cannot just stroll there casually, and since it is rarely used by anyone other than Sanan-san, it's a little isolated. If there are secrets being kept from me, then they have to be kept in a place where I never think to check. If I were to look into it, it would either be in the or the forgotten areas of the Yagi resident. That sentence is messing with my brain. Which should I look into? The Yagi house, apparently. It was night at the Yagi house and dead silent. I tiptoed down the halls as quietly as possible. Huh? Were my ears playing tricks on me, or did someone just walk into the common room? I would be in trouble if someone saw me, so I did my best to blend into the shadows and hide. After a few moments of heart-pounding and seclusions, my curiosity got the best of me. I departed my hiding place and crept towards the common room. I peered inside. Inside was Sanan-san. I wonder why. Something felt wrong. I just stood there. What is Sanan-san doing here late at night? I was at a loss. Should I speak to him, or... Before I could make my mind up, he turned.
まさか君に見つかるとはね。正直予想していませんでしたよ。
Sanan-san gazed directly at me and muttered.
雪村くん、そこにいるのでしょ？出てきなさい。
I guess he spotted me. I gave up and made myself visible to Sanan-san. I'm sorry if it seemed like I was snooping or watching what you were doing.
別に叱るつもりはありませんよ。夜中に怪しい人影を見かけたら気にかかるのは当然でしょうしね。
It was very subtle, but I noticed something was off in Sanan-san's attitude. He had a peaceful smile, something I hadn't seen for what felt like ages. It was a bit too peaceful, as if his worries had suddenly left him. It was an expression I have never seen since he'd gotten injured. Sanan-san, did something good happen?
ええ、ありましたよ。というより、ようやく決心できたと言うべきでしょうか。
Something swished in his hands. Sanan-san, what is that?
これが気になりますか？
After his cryptic reply, he showed me what was in his hand. Sanan-san was holding a small bottle made from fine idro. The glass was filled with a crimson liquid that looked like a poisonous chemical to me. What a big...
これは君の父親である光道さんが幕府の密使を受けて作った薬です。
What? The shogun had ordered my father to do something?
もともと西洋から渡来したものだそうですよ。人体に劇的な変化をもたらす飛躍としてね。
What do you mean by utterly transform?
単純な表現をすると、筋力や自己治癒力の増強でしょうか。
It sounded like something out of a fairy tale. If such a thing were to truly exist, the serum would be considered a miracle cure, but
しかし、この薬には致命的な欠陥がありました。
his smile twisted only a little.
強すぎる薬の効能が人の精神を狂わすに至ったのです。薬を飲んだ人間がどうなったか、その姿は君も目にしたことがありますね。
Of course, I'd seen the results of that madness the night I first met the Shinsengumi. Okuta and Saito-san had killed off that monster with the white hair.
君は察しがいいですね。そう、あの時の大妃たちですよ。薬を与えられた彼らは理性を失い、血に狂う化け物となり果てました。
His words brought a sharp chill down my spine. How horrible.
斬り合いの最中、血が流れるたびに狂っていては、強靭な肉体を手に入れた意味がありません。行動さんは新選組という実験場でこの薬の改良を行っていたのですよ。
No! My father conducting experiments on human beings that made them go mad at the sight of blood? I couldn't believe it. No, I didn't want to believe it. And there was no reason for Sanan-san to lie either. I saw it before my very eyes. Then did father really? Sanan-san shrugged off my disbelief and continued.
しかし残念ながら彼は行方不明となり、薬の研究は中断されてしまいました。行動さんが残した資料をもとにして私なりに手を加えたものがこれです。
He smirked and shook the bottle gently. The liquid inside sloshed from side to side almost lazily.
その原液をできる限り薄めてあります。
I had so many questions to ask him, but I didn't even know where to start, so I simply spoke the first thing that came to mind. If you drink that, will you be okay? So that serum, will it prevent you from going mad?
まだわかりません。誰にも試していないものですから。
His smile faded.
ですが、飲めば私の腕は治ります。薬の調合が成功さえしていればね。
You mean you're actually considering taking it? He had no guarantee that it wouldn't simply kill him outright, and even if he did survive, it might well drive him insane. Sanan-san, please reconsider this. I'm sure there's some other way. You don't need to rely on this.
こんなものにでも頼らなければ私の腕は治らないのですよ。私はもはや用済みとなった人間です。普通の大使まで陰口を叩いているのは知っています。あなたにはわからないでしょうね。大いなる志を持って同志と共に江戸から登ってきたというのに、何の役にも立てぬままお情けで重職を与えられている私の気持ちなど。
How could you say it's pity? You're a leader here. The Shinsengumi respects and needs you now more than ever. Sanan-san's eyes dotted with melancholy, flashing a brief smile that entertained the idea behind my words.
よく覚えていますよ。私は剣客としてもこの新選組に必要なのですよね。
Sanan-san seemed bitterly focused on the words Hijikata-san said earlier. They really did affect him.
剣客として死に、ただ生きた屍になれというのであれば、人としても死なせてください。
No!
失敗すると決まったわけではありません。そう分の悪い賭けではありませんよ。
Sanan-san smiled as he said that, but there was no way to know what might happen to him. Considering the worst that could happen, I couldn't sit by and allow him to do that. We persuade him. I still don't think you should take that serum. There's a higher chance that he'll fail, right? If the others knew that you were here doing this, they would all try and stop you.
確かに東堂君あたりは落胆するかもしれませんね。彼は人がいいですから。
I thought at first that he was beginning to reconsider, but my faint hope was shattered with words of resignation.
もし私が死んだら東堂君によろしく伝えてください。
What?
君にまで同情されるとは私も落ちたものです。
Those were his last words. He suddenly gulped down the red liquid stored in the bottle of fine hydro. No!